Now, some entries in a body of work can be a difficult act to follow, and what happens when you have to follow something as iconic as Stronger With You Absolutely? That's where Stronger With You Parfum comes in. The newest addition to the Stronger With You line expertly combines vanilla, chestnut, that fruity raspberry type of leather that you find in something like Tom Ford Tusker leather. Now, in terms of how it smells, this to me smells like you've taken the woods out of Stronger With You Absolutely, and you've left the vanilla chestnut base in there. And that smells very good because I do love that DNA so much. That's what it opens like. The top notes say pink pepper and mandarin. I don't really pick much of pink pepper or mandarin. I think it's just well blended enough that you don't really pick up individual notes a lot besides the actual core DNA of this fragrance. It then dries down into this leathery base that I explained earlier in the video is more that raspberry type of leather that you find in something like Tom Ford Tuscan leather. So it's inoffensive, it's very easygoing, it's easy to digest, it's easy to appreciate, it's easy to understand. And that's not a knock on the Stronger With You Parfum fragrance. It's a very good fragrance, but it's not very difficult to understand, especially if you're used to this DNA and this line of fragrances. From that leathery middle, it then fully dries down into straight vanilla. The chestnut dissipates at some points around the 8-hour mark, and then from the 8-hour mark onwards, it's more just that vanilla that you smell, and that's pretty much that's left on your skin. If you take a sniff off your wrist after 10 hours of spraying this, you'll smell kind of edible. It's a very pleasant smell, but it's just straight vanilla. If you have any other vanilla based fragrance, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So just to recap how the scent lives, it starts out as a vanilla chestnut combination. It then dries down a little bit into this leather raspberry combination, which is very pleasant, and then in the late stages of this fragrance, just as it becomes a skin scent and it's about to die, it's fully vanilla. That's how the fragrance life cycle of this goes on my skin. It may react differently to your skin, but that's how I pick it up, that's how I process it, and that's how I understand it. In terms of performance, this is beast mode territory, more on the longevity side than the projection and sillage side. Projection and sillage is on the stronger side. It projects very well from maybe like a meter away. People can smell me. It leaves an intoxicating scent trail, also I've been told when I wear it. And it's not a room filler, so it's not going to bombard people's noses. People are going to absolutely loathe being around you. You're going to be absolutely fine in terms of projection to wear this to the office or any other close setting like that. I wore it to the office the entire week last week, and my colleagues absolutely loved it. In terms of longevity, we are looking at 13 plus hours of this one on my skin. However, I will preface this by saying my skin holds fragrance pretty well, so it might differ on your skin. It might be less on your skin, it might be more on some people's skin. Obviously, this also varies from batch to batch, but just as a general rule, from what I got from my bottle was 13 plus hours of performance. Now, it could possibly be longer than that, but that's the longest while wearing this fragrance that I've gone between showers. You know, morning shower, then 13 hours later, my evening shower. So that's what I clock performance at. But I will say that by the time that I go into the shower, yes, it is a skin scent. However, it's not completely gone, and it doesn't feel like it's going to be completely gone for a little while. So if you're a little mustier and you wait like 20 hours between showers, who knows, maybe you'll still be able to pick it up after 20 hours. But long story short, projection, beast mode, you will have no issues whatsoever with this. And those are my objective review points on this fragrance. Now, to tap into personal bias a little bit here, imagine you build a product or a line of products that is incredibly well received, and each entrant in this line has its own fan base that absolutely swears by it. But each product does have its own flaws here and there, and that's why some people will swear by this fragrance and some people will, absolutely loathe this fragrance. It depends which person you're asking on which day that you're asking them. Each fragrance in the Stronger With You line is exactly like that. Stronger With You intensely has a very strong following in the younger demographic that absolutely swear by it. Also has some strong criticisms to go with it, like it's too syrupy sweet for the older demographic. That's why the 25 plus crowd might not love it as much as the 20 and under crowd loves it. You get Stronger With You absolutely, which I absolutely love, and it matures Stronger With You intensity's DNA a little bit and gears itself more towards that 25 plus club, where it's still a sweet fragrance, but it's a little bit more grown up, it's a little bit woodier, there's a little bit of elegance to go with it. But one of my favorite criticisms I ever heard of Stronger With You Absolutely was, what's the pleasure of smelling like you've just walked through a forest? That was my coworker telling me that it's a nice fragrance, granted, but it's a very witty fragrance, and that wittiness may not appeal to some people's noses. And the same criticisms will live for Stronger With You Tobacco, Stronger With You Freeze, the original Stronger With You, Stronger With You Sandalwood, whichever version of Stronger With You you have. There's likely something that you really love about it, but there's likely also a character flaw that you just can't ignore about it. But you love it enough that you don't really care about the character flaw. You're gonna wear it anyway. I think what Armani has done with this new Stronger With You Parfum is they've taken the best bits of other Stronger With Yous, that core DNA, and they've stripped away the criticism points from each Stronger With You, and they've created what on paper is a technically sound and technically perfect fragrance with obviously its own strengths, but no major drawbacks to it. That's what it smells like. It smells like the DNA has been perfected. That's the best way I can put it. And that's a little sad if you ask me, because I think we've shied away from character flaws. Maybe what we're ignoring here is that character flaws means that the product has character to begin with. And if you strip away all of those character flaws the way that they have with Stronger With You Parfum, you're left with something that is technically great, but really you're not going to have any connection to it, especially if you own another fragrance in the Stronger With You line. On its own, it's a fantastic fragrance, but if you compare it to your favorite Stronger With You fragrance, you're almost not going to like it as much. But maybe that's more worry for those of us that actually are familiar with this line. I wore this to the office. The first day I wore it, somebody told me this is your second ever 10 out of 10 fragrance. I don't know what my first 10 out of 10 fragrance was because they never told me, rude of them. But they said this is your second ever 10 out of 10 fragrance. And you know what? I have to agree with that to some point. It is a 10 out of 10 fragrance. It's absolutely fantastic, but there's no charm to it. And I guess that's what happens when you strip away the character from a product. It loses its charm as well. In terms of seasons and wearability, this is a cold weather geared fragrance, but honestly, you can pull it off just as fine in the summer. You can wear this to the office, you can wear this to special occasions. In that sense, it is very versatile. I have worn it to the office pretty much this entire week. It hasn't offended anybody. Everybody's absolutely loved it. So you're absolutely fine to wear this to the office. Just make sure you're not spraying like 20 sprays or something and you're going to choke out the whole room. Be moderate with that. For that same reason, you can wear this in the summer as well. Now, it is currently smack dead in the middle of winter right now in South Africa, so, I have been enjoying that. When summer rolls around, you can wear this then too without any issues, just as long as you dial back the sprays. So however many you wear in winter, maybe wear half of that in summer, because it's going to perform better in the heat anyway. Now, while it is a cold weather geared fragrance, there aren't any notes in here that are going to make it cloying or headache inducing. I find that tonka in the high heat causes headaches. This doesn't have anything like that in it that's going to cause you a headache. So in terms of wearing it in the heat, you're absolutely fine to do that. Again, just dial back the sprays. And that's it on Stronger With You Parfum. Thank you for tuning in. An absolute masterpiece of a fragrance. I just think that they've taken away some of its character.